Hello, we are in the Prelude, the introduction to the series of Ken Wapnick's journey through the text of A Course in Miracles. Musical forms. Another major form of A Course in Miracles is its quasi-musical structure, in part based on what Richard Wagner called the Leitmotiv, a German word meaning leading motive. Wagner did not invent the concept, but he brilliantly perfected its use, unlike what had heretofore been done or has been done since. He associated certain musical themes with characters or emotions. In his earlier works, these motifs or melodies were more concrete and referred to certain specific characters or objects such as a swan or a sword. In his later works, however, these themes became more subtle and abstract, both musically as well as in their sophisticated application to the psychological states of the characters. I'm going to stop because I didn't read the footnote. So the leading motive, and then we have a footnote 1. Even though the German word is actually spelled with a V, I will use an equally popular spelling based on the French to avoid confusion with the English word motive, and that's the leitmotiv. Leading motive. Okay, let's get back to the reading. In Parsifal, his last opera, and I don't pronounce things correctly, I know this. There were motifs for faith, and in Tristan and Isolde, how do you say that? I don't know. All right, and in arguably his greatest work, motifs for learning or death. Their reappearance usually underwent subtle changes in harmony, rhythm, and intervals to mirror the changes, usually interval in the drama. This same form is found in A Course in Miracles. To give just one example, rest is a strong word that is used very sparingly in the Course, but when it appears, it has a powerful effect. Wresting something from others connotes hostility, and one of the important sections that deals with special relationships, the choice for completion, speaks of endowing our little self with the power we wrested from truth, stealing it and making it our own. Chapter 23 speaks even more powerfully and dramatically of the same dynamic, describing the seizing of specialness from another and investing its treasure in ourselves, the treasure we wrested in righteous wrath. We not only see the reoccurrence of wrested, but also its presence in a wonderfully alliterative phrase. To be sure, these forms are not essential in helping one understand or apply A Course in Miracles, but they may be helpful in giving students a better appreciation of the Course as a wonderful work of art, in addition to its power as a spiritual teaching. Looking at the Course's musical aspects, as I mentioned at the beginning, provides a sense of the real power of the Course's writing, impressive not only aesthetically, but as integral to the process of learning its lessons. This was one of the aspects that immediately struck me when I first began reading A Course in Miracles. Music was an important part of my own spiritual journey and is still a great love of mine, and it helped me acquire an even deeper appreciation of this spiritual and literary masterpiece. Repeatedly reading the text, I began to see the ingenious nature of the writing. What immediately came to mind, which will return to me to the musical theme, was Thomas Mann's Dr. Faustus. This preeminent German writer from 1875 to 1955, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, began writing this modern variation of the Faust legend in the late 1930s, becoming quite ill during the course of its writing, and finally completing it at the end of the Second World War in 1947. It is the story of a brilliant composer, Adrian Leverkühn, and one of the striking aspects of the work, this is what helped me appreciate the writing style of the course, is that it is written on 3 levels: from the perspective of the composer, whose life spanned the years 1885 to 1940, the last 10 years of which witness to his growing insanity. Like Nietzsche's, I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry, the narrator, Serenus Zeitblom, Adrian's childhood and closest friend, writing the story during the years, I keep messing this up, I'm sorry, of 1943 and 1945, the heart of the war, and Mann's actual writing of the novel during and after the war. There is an implicit 4th perspective as well, that of the reader. These levels interrelate throughout and become particularly important because the story of Adrian is not only the story of a great composer and his mental deterioration, but is a parable of the rise and fall of Nazi Germany, from ascension to power in maniacal insanity. Mann was a particularly strong critic of fascism and Nazism in the late 1920s, and in the late 1920s wrote the short story Mario and the Magician that foreshadowed their rise. One of the first of the non-Jewish German intelligentsia to become aware of the great danger of Hitler, he left his homeland in 1933 and eventually immigrated to the United States. To repeat, Dr. Faustus is a parable of Germany's fate, reflected in the musical genius who becomes psychotic, his success and deterioration occurring within the backdrop of modern Germany. Mann, who was a great lover of Wagner, used the leitmotif to perfection, where his phrases reoccur in different ways, heightening the power and drama of his 20th century parable. The key chapter in the book, the scene between Adrian and the devil, was written in such a way that the reader could never really be sure whether his madness had its beginning in his one night in a bordello, as was apparently the case with Nietzsche, who, legend has it, contracted syphilis as a young man, or whether it was an actual confrontation with the devil. The scene's ambiguity heightens its power and helped me later to see a parallel with the writing of A Course in Miracles, where there are many passages that can be taken 1, 2, or 3 ways. Indeed, they are often best taken in all 3. I also discovered that this climactic chapter in Mann's book, which occurs somewhere in the middle, is written in sonata form, basic to so many musical works, where there is an exposition of the theme, its development, and subsequent recapitulation. I have never performed such an analysis with A Course in Miracles, but I suspect that a similar structure can be found in many of its sections and chapters as well. The following anonymous passage describes man's musical writing and parallels the structure of the course's text. I have taken the liberty of substituting Jesus for man, and where the writer talked about Dr. Faustus, I substituted text. Okay, here we go. Jesus wants to explore the many elements of the myth, the birth of the ego, its fall, and our return home. The text is only marginally linear. The themes are explored by techniques such as montage and use a musical structure. It is a musical structure with each element introduced over time in a manner that develops unceasingly complex connections between these elements. And ultimately, one can see the entire picture of all the elements and their interconnections to make a central statement. All these elements and their interconnections constitute the entire statement and are indispensable. There is a parallel passage in Freud's preface to his introductory lectures on psychoanalysis, in which the founder of psychoanalysis sets forth the symphonic manner of his lecturing and writing. Okay, so now I'm reading that. The necessities of the moment often made it impossible to avoid repetitions in treating some particular subject. It might emerge once for one instance in connection with dream interpretation, and then again on in connection with the problems of the neuroses. As a result, too, of the way in which the material was arranged, some important topics could not be exhaustively treated at a single point, but had to be taken up repeatedly and then dropped again until a fresh opportunity arose for adding some further information about it. And we just read pages 4 and 5, and I'm going to stop there today for this reading, and I will pick up tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining with me. Have a lovely day. And it does go on, I think, at least 2 more pages. And we are in musical forms in the prelude. I will see you tomorrow. I love you. Thank you.